Boeing crisis. How the world's most trusted aircraft manufacturer lost its reputation. Imagine boarding a flight, trusting that every bolt, every wire, and every decision behind that aircraft has been tested to perfection. Now imagine discovering that one of the world's most respected aerospace companies had become the center of one of aviation's biggest crises. Two brand new passenger aircraft crashed just 5 months apart. 346 people never made it home. Within days, countries around the world grounded an airplane that Boeing insisted was safe. How did a company that had spent more than a century building trust find itself accused of putting business pressure ahead of engineering? This is the story of Boeing, and how one of the greatest names in aviation lost the confidence of the world. Chapter 1. The King of the Skies. For decades, Boeing wasn't just another manufacturer, it was aviation itself. Founded in 1916, the company grew alongside the modern airline industry. From military aircraft to commercial aviation, Boeing became synonymous with innovation. Then came the aircraft that changed everything. The Boeing 747, known as the Queen of the Skies. It transformed international travel forever. Millions of passengers crossed oceans aboard Boeing aircraft. Airlines trusted the company. Pilots respected its engineering. Governments relied on its technology. By the early 2000s, Boeing had become one of America's most respected industrial giants. Its aircraft connected continents, powered global trade, and carried billions of passengers safely across the world. Its reputation had been built, not through marketing, but through decades of engineering excellence. Yet even giants face competition, and Boeing's greatest challenge was quietly growing across the Atlantic. Chapter 2. The Race Against Airbus. While Boeing dominated much of the aviation industry, Europe had its own challenger, Airbus. For years, the rivalry pushed both companies to innovate faster. Then Airbus introduced the A320neo, a more fuel-efficient aircraft that promised airlines significant savings. Fuel is one of an airline's biggest expenses. Even small improvements could save millions of dollars every year. Airlines noticed. Orders for Airbus surged. Suddenly, Boeing faced enormous pressure. Developing an entirely new aircraft could take close to a decade and cost billions of dollars. Instead, Boeing chose another path. It would update its best-selling aircraft, the 737. The result became the 737 MAX. On paper, it looked like the perfect answer. More efficient engines, lower operating costs, familiar controls for airlines already flying older 737 models. But those larger engines also changed how the aircraft behaved under certain conditions. Engineers needed a solution. That solution became known as MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. Most passengers had never heard its name. Many pilots knew very little about it. Yet this software would soon become one of the most discussed systems in aviation history. First, few outside Boeing paid attention. The aircraft entered service. Orders continued to grow. Investors remained confident. Everything appeared normal. Until October 2018. Everything changed. Chapter 3. The First Crash. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 departed Jakarta, Indonesia. Just minutes after takeoff, the pilots encountered repeated flight control problems. Despite their efforts, the aircraft crashed into the Java Sea. All 189 people on board lost their lives. Investigators began examining every possibility. Weather, maintenance, pilot actions, aircraft systems. Attention soon turned toward MCAS. Preliminary findings indicated that faulty sensor data had activated the system repeatedly, contributing to a series of nose-down commands. The investigation identified multiple contributing factors rather than a single cause. For many outside the aviation industry, the name MCAS was still unfamiliar. But within Boeing, and among aviation regulators, serious questions were beginning to emerge. Could software, combined with faulty sensor inputs, place pilots in an extremely difficult situation? Investigations continued. Boeing maintained confidence in the aircraft while working with regulators and airlines on updates and guidance. Flights continued around the world. The 737 MAX remained in service. Then, just 5 months later, history repeated itself. Chapter 4. The Second Crash. For months, questions surrounded the first accident. Investigators continued gathering evidence. Boeing worked with airlines and maintained that the 737 MAX remained safe to fly. Then, on March 10, 2019, another tragedy unfolded. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 departed Addis Ababa, bound for Nairobi. Just minutes after takeoff, the pilots reported flight control problems. Moments later, the aircraft crashed. Everyone on board lost their lives. The similarities to the Lion Air accident were impossible to ignore. Two nearly new aircraft, 2 crashes, within 5 months. An early investigation pointed toward similar flight control behavior. Around the world, aviation authorities acted quickly. Country after country grounded the Boeing 737 MAX. China acted first. Europe followed. Canada, Australia, India. One by one, regulators suspended operations of the aircraft. Initially, the United States did not immediately ground the fleet. But after additional data became available, the Federal Aviation Administration also ordered the temporary grounding of the 737 MAX. For the first time in Boeing's modern history, one of its flagship aircraft had been grounded worldwide. The crisis had become global, but grounding the aircraft was only the beginning. Now, the investigations truly began. Chapter 5. The Investigation. As investigators analyzed the aircraft, another investigation unfolded behind closed doors. How had this happened? Official investigations by aviation authorities and accident investigators examined aircraft design, certification, training, maintenance, and operational factors. Attention increasingly focused on MCAS, the software designed to automatically push the aircraft's nose downward under certain conditions. Investigators found that, in both accidents, faulty sensor data played an important role in triggering repeated MCAS activation. Pilots struggled against commands they did not expect. The investigation raised broader questions. How much information about MCAS had been included in pilot training? How was the aircraft certified? Were regulators given enough information during the approval process? Congressional hearings, FAA reviews, and independent investigations examined Boeing's development process and regulatory oversight. Internal company communications later released publicly also drew significant attention. Some messages revealed employees expressing concerns about aspects of the aircraft's development and certification process. Those communications fueled criticism that safety decisions may have been influenced by commercial pressure. Boeing has stated that it made mistakes, implemented significant changes, and worked extensively with regulators to improve the aircraft before its return to service. But by then, public confidence had already been shaken. The company that once represented engineering excellence was now facing questions about its culture, its leadership, and its priorities. Chapter 6. The fallout. The financial consequences were enormous. Production slowed. Aircraft deliveries stopped. Airlines sought compensation. Billions of dollars were lost through settlements, production disruptions, compensation, and other costs associated with the crisis. Boeing's reputation, built over more than a century, suffered one of the greatest challenges in its history. The company's leadership also changed. In late 2019, CEO Dennis Muhlenberg stepped down. New leadership inherited an extraordinary challenge. Restore public trust, work with regulators, improve safety processes, and convince airlines, pilots, and passengers that the aircraft could safely return to service. Engineers redesigned MCAS. Pilot training requirements were updated. The aircraft underwent extensive reviews by regulators in multiple countries. After nearly 20 months, the 737 MAX gradually returned to commercial service, following approval from aviation authorities that required design changes and updated pilot training. But approval from regulators did not instantly restore confidence. Trust is far more difficult to rebuild than technology. Chapter 7. Can Boeing recover? Today, Boeing remains one of the world's largest aerospace companies. Its aircraft continue transporting millions of passengers every year. The company has invested heavily in improving safety, quality systems, and regulatory compliance. Yet scrutiny remains intense. More recent manufacturing quality concerns involving Boeing have continued to attract attention from regulators, airlines, and the public, leading to additional reviews and oversight. Every new issue is viewed through the lens of the 737 MAX crisis, because the story is no longer just about one airplane. It is about culture, leadership, accountability, and the difficult balance between innovation, competition, and safety. For Boeing, rebuilding trust is not measured in months. It is measured, flight by flight. For more than 100 years, Boeing helped shape modern aviation. Its aircraft connected families, powered economies, and carried billions of passengers across the world. That legacy cannot be erased, but neither can the lessons of the 737 MAX crisis. The investigations showed how complex decisions, engineering challenges, business pressures, and regulatory oversight can intersect with profound consequences. In aviation, every decision matters, every detail matters, because passengers place something priceless in the hands of aircraft manufacturers, their trust. And once trust is damaged, rebuilding it requires more than new technology. It requires transparency, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to safety. The Boeing story is not just about one company. It is a reminder that no reputation is too big to fail, and no organization can afford to place anything above the responsibility of protecting human life. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Corporate Kishan for more stories about the world's biggest companies, their greatest successes, their biggest failures, and the decisions that changed history. Until next time, thank you for watching.